Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. We're your source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development, where we share original research, explore industry trends, and interview executives and thought leaders from across the globe. We hope you join us often for practitioner-oriented content around all things related to leadership, HR, talent management, organizational development, and change management. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with Human Capital Innovations Podcast. Do you enjoy the Human Capital Innovations Podcast? Please subscribe, leave a review, comment, share, and consider supporting the podcast on Patreon, even at the producer and sponsorship levels. Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. In this HCI podcast episode, I talk with Dave Jennings about the pit of success, how leaders adapt, succeed, and repeat. Dave Jennings, welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast.
Great to be with you.
Yeah, it's great to be able to connect. We've been connected for a long time. In fact, you were my professor years ago, and I took a really terrific training and development course from you in my master's program. I loved the course. I followed you in your career ever since on LinkedIn, and we got reconnected recently and explore the idea of getting together to have this podcast conversation. And I'm super excited to be able to explore your new book. The book is titled The Pit of Success: How Leaders Adapt, Succeed, and Repeat. You're co-author on that book, and just a brilliant book. It's a Wall Street Journal #1 bestseller, and I'm excited to explore that with you. As we get started, I just wanted to share Dave's bio with everyone. Like I said, Dave Jennings is co-author of the #1 Wall Street Journal bestselling book, The Pit of Success. He is president of Learnable Solutions, a training and consulting firm. His PhD research focused on change resilience, and Dave makes change easier for leaders, teams, and organizations. Again, pleasure to have you. Anything else you would like to share with my listeners by way of your background or personal context before we dive on in?
John, I'm just great to see you again, and I hope you got a good grade in the class. So
I think I did. If I recall, you gave me an A, so I can't complain.
All right, great. No, you covered all the basics. So I look forward to talking with you.
Very, very good. Okay, so let's start with the core of the title. And what is the pit of success?
Sure. The pit of success is the space in front of whatever you want to do. If you're looking to become better at anything, there's a pit in front of it. There's something that you're going to have to get worse at before you get better at. And so what we really push is that your future depends on your willingness to embrace the pit. Because if you're willing to be temporarily incompetent, there's nothing you can't do. All right. Everything is within your reach. If you avoid that space, then you're going to tend to be more stuck. And what we find is people understand the pit of success. They're more willing to take on challenges that scared them and intimidated them. But when they realize it's a normal space, the feelings of loss are the most natural things you could go through. They're just more willing to jump in and do things they don't know how to do.
Yeah, I like that framing, the pit of success. And I like being comfortable in temporary incompetence. I think that's a brilliant way of framing it. And that's the reality, right? We all have those types of incompetence, and we're all learning and growing constantly. Like that's what life is all about. And I was having a conversation just the other day with someone, about being authentic, and he really took issue with the fake it till you make it kind of an idea. And regardless of what you call it, whether it's fake it till you make it, or it's just like lean into the uncertainty, the ambiguity, and recognize that, yes, we're all learning as we go. We're all building the plane while we fly it. that's okay. Like I don't know everything. I don't need to know everything. There's no way I could possibly know everything. All I can do is try to continually be learning and growing and try to help those around me to do the same. And if I do that, it's, to me, that sounds like what you're talking about with the pit of success is just don't allow the obstacles to stand in your way. Like, yes, of course there's going to be obstacles. Nothing worth doing has ever come easy.
Right.
And so we have to struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. And imagine if you only did things you already know how to do. Who would you be? The same person you are today.
And that
Do
would
I
be
do-
boring, wouldn't it?
what I always say is I would still be in high school, and do I really want to be that person? So yeah, our future really changes when we're willing to, as you say, lean in, the fake it to the make it. One thing I really like to push is that it's not so much, although you feel like a fake, you're really doing okay. You may look around you and you're like, oh, they look good. They look good. And the fact is, everybody is doing things they don't know how to do. Everybody has doubt and they're trying to just do the best they can. I think one of the challenges and one of the things I really want to normalize is those people that you look at that just look amazing, they have the same thoughts. They wonder if they're good enough. We've interviewed politicians, surgeons, PTA presidents. It doesn't matter. Whatever the role is, if you're doing something that you've not done before, you don't know how to do it. Our world depends on all of us doing things we don't know how to do yet. So that is our future.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do we go about starting to tackle and conquer the pit of success, or to build a bridge over the pit, or, whatever the metaphor is you want to use?
Sure. One, I think, is redefining what the pit means. So like the pit of success, those words have some very intentional meaning. It is not uncommon for people to talk about the pit of despair. All right. And in fact, you're like, oh, I'm in the pit of despair and I'm overwhelmed. But merely by calling it a pit of despair, you change your brain's chemicals and the way you think about something. Your brain is very, very sensitive to word choice. And so if you're defining something as despair, you're having more chemicals in your body that limit you. It is a pit, though. So like you could say, well, Dave, you're trying to be Pollyanna and just say, hey, jump in. I'm not taking anything away from the difficulty. It is a pit. It is dark. It is lonely. You are confused. You're lost. You're slow. So the reality is it's a pit, but it's a pit of success, because if you're willing to be lost, if you're willing to be confused, then you can always get better. In fact, you can imagine I try and get all my kids to buy into this, because it'll help their whole life. And one of my daughters, when she was 16, she came home from school and said, Dad, I think I get what you're saying. I was in my sociology class and we're talking about stuff. And she said, you're telling us if we're willing to feel dumb, we can always get smarter. And it's like, yes, if you're willing to feel temporarily dumb, then you can do anything. And that is the nature of all growth, is doing things when you don't know how. And everybody around you, even when they look like they're just confident, they're figuring it out too.
Yeah, the willingness to look dumb or to feel dumb. It's why, some people aren't willing to try new ideas, express new ideas. Sometimes I'm kind of a think out loud kind of guy, and so that kind of drives some people crazy, because they like to think through very carefully everything, carefully consider it, and then really craft their words and speak in that way. And which, that's fine. Everyone has their own style. Everyone has their own approach. In my mind, the part of the reason why that's my style is just because I don't feel like I have to be so like tied in to whatever I am thinking or saying right in the moment. Like, yes, I'm constantly evolving. I'm taking in new information. I'm reevaluating. Sometimes I'll say something and then realize, you know what? that doesn't make sense, or I don't even agree with myself. I just heard myself say those words and I don't believe that. I don't agree with that. And so we all have our own process. That I guess the question is, are we willing to allow ourselves to go there and to explore? And if we are, then we can start to shine a light on those things that maybe we aren't comfortable with, or things that we do want to unlearn or relearn, or new things we want to go explore altogether, like we've never even tried before. And if we can look temporarily dumb or stupid, or we can recognize that, yeah, sometimes we're going to put our foot in our mouth, we can apologize, we can try to make it better. I don't expect perfection from myself. I don't expect perfection from anybody else around me. And if we can all just kind of give each other permission to learn as we go, then I think that creates a really dynamic environment and a psychologically safe environment where now we can move forward and just experiment and iterate. And as we try new things, we're going to figure out some things work, some things don't work, and we'll be able to progress and move forward. So that's kind of the way I frame it up. And I like the positive framing of the pit, the reality that the pit, yes, the pit does exist, and we can't get past that. There are real obstacles, and the reality is some people face bigger obstacles than others. We're both straight white dudes, and that's it brings with it a certain level of privilege, and so our pit looks different, say, than a person of color, or a female, or people who have other disadvantages, because of various societal norms and values. And so we just need to acknowledge what our pits are. We need to acknowledge what our privileges are, and then we can start to chart a path, right, to how we can overcome it. And so I guess awareness, knowledge is half the battle. If we can really just be clear-eyed about those realities, then we can really start to put a plan in place. So what would you say to a leader who's feeling, imposter syndrome? They're feeling overwhelmed. They're feeling like they see what they want to, where they want to go, but they just don't see a way around that pit. How would you approach that?
There is no way around the pit. You are going to go through it. I'm very serious that your future depends on your willingness to be temporarily incompetent. The fact is, if you want to learn, you're going to have to do things you don't know how to do. And so one, to me, the defining and accepting it is a reality. And like for myself, I study this, I've studied it for years. And when I do something beyond my experience, I go through it too. And I would argue I probably understand it better than most everybody because of all the research, but it doesn't exclude those feelings of, I thought I would be better. I thought this wouldn't be as hard. I thought I could pull in more. So one is accept that that's just part of it. The other part is to help a leader get through it. So one, define it as norm. If you can accept the normality of it, you have a huge advantage. The other part really connected with that is to accept what my co-author calls the betweenness. When you're in that space, you're between your current expertise and your future expertise. And when you're between, a very common response is, I should be better. You're going to sit there and talk to yourself and say, what's the matter with me? And so what I would push on people is, you're not supposed to be better. You are supposed to be figuring this out. You're not supposed to know. You're supposed to have to work hard. You're supposed to make a few missteps. And so when you can accept that, hey, I'm not supposed to know, there's this huge burden that just goes off. It's like, I've never been here before. Why should I know? I don't know about you, but when I go to a city I've been to before, I just I'm okay. But when I get to a city I've never been to, there's this certain, wow, it's the same with learning things. You're in a city you've never been before. You don't know where to turn, and you're going to, hit a few dead ends there. So accepting the betweenness and that not knowing is exactly where you should be. I think that's a big step.
Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Academy, courses, micro-credentials, and certificates to upskill and reskill for the future of work. All HCI Academy courses, micro-credentials, and certificates are designed, developed, and delivered by award-winning and internationally renowned scholars, educators, thought leaders, executives, and practitioners. Our courses, micro-credentials, and certificates will help you make your mark on the future of work and make an immediate impact in your organizations. Check out the HCI Academy and our many course offerings and certificates to upskill and reskill for the future of work. Check out our new weekly LinkedIn newsletter, Alchemizing Human Capital, exploring industry trends via original research and interviews with executives and thought leaders from across the globe. We look forward to having you join us.
And another one, the research is real clear on taking time to clarify purpose. As I look out there and I listen to others, I hear this advice from every discipline. It doesn't matter. You're going to hear this advice. And the reason is it's a foundational piece of advice of what is your purpose for this? And sometimes you can think, well, purpose, grand, I'm going to, cure cancer or whatever. It's like that's great. And if you have that, more power to you. But for a lot of us, purpose is just around something simple like, I've always wanted to do this. I've wanted to see if I could do this. And it can be that simple. I just want to do it. I want to be the first one to graduate college in my family. I want to be able to take on this new job. And so whatever that purpose is, figuring that out gives you huge advantage because you can return to it when you're sitting there and you're going, this pit is deeper and darker than I thought. But why am I in it? Because I want X. So those would be my starting places. Pit would be clarity of purpose, accept the betweenness, and redefine what it means to be in the pit.
Yeah, love it, love it. And the subtitle to the book says "Adapt, Succeed, Repeat."
Oh yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that? What do you mean by that?
So basically, you and I are at this level right now. We're doing whatever we're doing. We're in our current expertise. We're going to go into the pit, and down here, we're going to be lost and confused. Then we're going to come back and we're going to be better than we were before. And it's like, all right, this is now your current expertise. Well, good news, bad news. To get to your next level, you're going to have to repeat it. And so every new demand makes you, go up the curve and makes you go down the curve. And that's the joy of life, really, is refiguring it out and saying, all right, I know how to do X, but I don't know how to do this. I've never been here before. Why should I know that? And that to me is just the unburdening of, I'm gonna repeat this, and I'm gonna figure it out for a while, but then I'm gonna get a new demand, and I'll have to figure it out again.
Do you see a way that we can go about, like, how do we build the muscle around continuous learning and the resilience to deal with the pit, so that we can't avoid it and we can't go around it, but perhaps we can get better at how we respond to it, and perhaps we can get to the point where that learning curve goes a little bit faster. Any thoughts on that?
Sure. So I think one to get better at it is start doing small things. Now, so there's a continuum. Some people jump into the pit with no thought. All right. Others fight the pit as long as they can. And so we're all on that continuum. If you're on the end of the continuum that says, I don't want to try things, to me, it's small things. I mean, try a different dish when you go out to dinner. It could be that simple. It's the idea of just, all right, I'm going to try something different. You're not always going to like the dish you order because you miss your favorite dish at that restaurant, but try small things as the starting place. And that gets kind of the habit. And I know I'm biased, but I think the things we've already talked about also change because you really realize that, okay, it's normal. I'm going to figure it out. And knowing that, I think is a big deal. The other thing that is connected, we haven't talked to as much, it's actually chapter 2 in the book, is we heavily want people to understand that their brain can change. And I have a real bias that when you understand the way your brain rewires, you're more free to embrace the pit. Because a lot of us, you go into something new and you say, this isn't me. I don't have talent for this. I'm lost. I'm confused. I failed before, which are normal statements. But if you understand that your brain is learnable, it can rewire, then you're sitting there and you're going, okay, yeah, it's true. All those things are true. I have never been here before. And maybe I haven't previously had the talent, but I know that if I practice, my brain will rewire. Your brain virtually has no choice. If you focus and repeat, your brain has to rewire, whether that's muscle memory or a habit or whatever it is. And so one thing I really want people to know is you have a learnable brain. And if you get that, then you're like, oh, you mean when I go in that pit, I'm going to be okay? Yeah, you're going to be okay. You're going to be lost, but you're going to figure it out. Your brain will rewire.
Yeah. And just that reassurance that you take that step into the darkness, and that's so scary. But if you just know that you will be okay, you're going to be fine. And it could be a little uncomfortable for a bit, but you will be fine. And like you said, as we rewire, as we lean into the uncertainty, and as we have more experience with, facing the pits in our life or whatever, however you frame it, then it becomes easier and easier to feel that comfort amidst the discomfort, to recognize that this is part of the process. This is, this is me learning and developing. This is me growing. And that's, again, what you've already said it, but that's what life is all about. That's what makes life interesting. If I was doing the same thing each and every day ad nauseum, I would get so bored. I would not feel fulfilled. I would not feel meaning and purpose in my life. And so we need to foster that within ourselves, our resilience, our ability to deal with the pits in our own lives and to continue learning. And we need to foster that within our teams, within our organizations. And that actually gets to my next question. You started to talk to it a little bit, in relation to change, ongoing change. We know that every organization is facing a continuous onslaught of change. And certainly the last 2 years has even shown a brighter light on that. We've had to be able to adapt and pivot constantly and relearn and unlearn and challenge assumptions and all these different things. We've had to be able to do that more over the last couple of years than perhaps we've had to do any time in recent history. And I think that pace of change is just going to continue. We're accelerating into the future of work. We're accelerating into this reality where we just have to constantly be adapting. And so how do we as leaders create a dynamic culture where we can really foster and get excited about continual change? And as some have talked about it, we can enhance our change agility. We can enhance our change ability through the work that we're doing right now in how we frame things, how we have communications, and the policies, practices, and procedures within the organization.
So I really think leaders need to normalize the pit of success. And that's what we do. Like when we go into companies, and we often, we'll work with the executive team, and then it will start trickling in. In fact, one of the presidents of a company, I saw him a few months after we had started. He said, Dave, I walk in to different people's offices, and all the time I see the pit of success drawn on the board. And he said, I just imagine that manager was sitting there talking with somebody and saying, hey, here's what we're going through, and just normalizing it, normalizing that you're going to be overwhelmed. And yeah, this is where you're at, and you're going to figure it out. And if I can make a side note there, what we don't want to do is use the pit of success and weaponize it. What some people will do is go, the problem with you is you won't jump in. That does not motivate me one bit to take on anything. And so to respect that it is a process, to respect that it is really, really hard to leave your current expertise, and to not minimize the difficulties that some people resist that more than others. To me, when we respect that change, rather than what's the matter with you? Also, when we express our own vulnerability, I am always pushing leaders I work with to share their pit and to share that, hey, here's what I'm having to learn right now. Here's what I learned in my last job, and here were the difficulties I had. And right now I'm going through this. The old school of leadership is what? Show no vulnerability. And we've heard a lot about vulnerability. And to me, it's not so much vulnerability as it is just normality. I just want to make it normal that you're learning, I'm learning. What I have to learn is different from you because I've been pushed into a new pit, but we're all just learning, and to normalize that, to realize that our future really does depend on us letting go of what we're good at and doing something we don't know how to do until we're good at something new.
Yeah, it's impossible to innovate if we're just continually doing what we're already good at, right?
Right. So 20 plus years ago, I left Hewlett Packard. And at that time, Hewlett Packard was a Fortune 20 company. I literally had kind of my dream job, but I always wanted to start a consulting firm. I always planned on that. And when I started, I put up a very common quote in my office. I still have it. Now it's on the bookshelf, but it says, you can't discover new oceans until you have the courage to lose sight of the shore. And for me, that's always a reminder of, I can keep doing this. I'm going to be good. In fact, people love what I do. And in 5 years, if I'm still doing it, they're not going to need it in the same way. But just to realize that, you're not supposed to be better. You're supposed to be where you're at, and you're going to figure it out. When I graduated with my bachelor's degree, my parents gave me this really cool etched piece of metal. And it said, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? And I was like, that's a cool idea. But here's what's kind of crazy is, after studying resilience, I decided it was a terrible statement. Because if you only did things that you felt you couldn't fail at, where's life in that? And so, even though it won't fit on a short piece of metal, to me, I've rewritten that to say, what would you do if you knew you could figure it out? You're going to make a misstep. You're going to get confused. But what would you do if you knew you could figure it out? Now I've got freedom. And to me, that comes back to the learnable brain, that you're going to figure it out. It's who you are. It's what we're built to do.
Yeah, I love it, Dave. It has been a pleasure. I know at the time I'm going to have to let you go here in just a minute, but before we close for today, I just wanted to give you a chance to share with listeners how they can connect with you, find out more about your work, where they can find your book, and then give us a final word on the topic for today.
You bet. So our training and development site is learnablesolutions.com, and it can tell you about the different things we do to help companies. And I'm also on LinkedIn. If you put in LinkedIn leadership, I put out a periodic post on there. I really want to end with what we started with, of that your future depends on being temporarily incompetent, and what you need is learnable. I am so convinced, after reading study after study, that your brain can rewire. You can figure it out. I am just like, there's no doubt in my mind. So that's what I want everybody to know.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dave. It has been a pleasure. I encourage listeners to reach out, get connected, find out more about what Dave can do for you. Check out the book. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week. Bluer Than Indigo Leadership, the journey of becoming a truly remarkable leader. Early in my adult life, I learned about an Asian proverb that translates as bluer than indigo. If you think about the color indigo, it is a brilliant, deep, and vibrant blue, what some would call the bluest of blues. To have something that is bluer than indigo is rare and truly remarkable. Contrary to popular myth, there is no one-size-fits-all or cookie-cutter approach to effective leadership. There is no silver bullet, no secret sauce, no go-to model that will solve all of your problems. The truth is, great leaders have all had their unique strengths and flaws, and have all had to discover and then pave their own distinctive path in their life's journey to fulfill their leadership potential. Bluer Than Indigo Leadership will help you discover your own path and explore those ordinary, everyday actions that will help you respond to an uncertain future and produce extraordinary results for individuals, teams, and organizations. Check out Human Capital Innovations magazine, Human Capital Leadership. Human Capital Leadership is a free, interactive e-magazine with the mission to help individuals, leaders, and organizations find innovative approaches to maximize their human capital potential. We publish issues quarterly in August, November, February, and May. Take a look at the latest issue and let us know what you think. The alchemy of truly remarkable leadership. Ordinary, everyday actions that produce extraordinary results. Consider how the nature of work has shifted over the past 50 years. With increased globalization, rapid technological advancement, and the shift in economic composition, the average job of today looks very different than the average job of 50 years ago. What will the jobs and organizations of tomorrow look like? Moreover, what does this all mean for organizational leaders? What are the core competencies and capabilities of organizations and their leadership that are prepared for continued disruption and geopolitical and socioeconomic shifts? Regardless of what the future holds, increasingly, leaders need to be socially minded, data-driven, decisive, champions of talent, and disruptors of the traditional notions of leadership, teams, organizations, and work. The alchemy of truly remarkable leadership will help you to explore your own leadership competencies and capabilities and consider ways to apply and implement them into your workplace and personal life. Do you enjoy the Human Capital Innovations podcast? Please subscribe, leave a review, comment, share, and consider supporting the podcast on Patreon, even at the producer and sponsorship levels. Thanks again for joining us for this episode of the Human Capital Innovations podcast. I hope you stay healthy and safe and that you have a great week.